In a
The
cave?
Rizal's mikveh.
Yeah.
Nowadays they build all over.
What?
There was nothing over it?
Yeah.
Before it was much
Ever
more
made
improved.
So there's a little thing over, so you just...
The Rizal used to
You
go
mean
there
nicer.
even when he was ill. It's
I thought
brought
it was
down
like
that
a
he suffered at one stage from, excuse me, how do you call them, pile, you know what it is? It's like, excuse me, in that area of the body, a very painful blockage. It's called tachurim, it's called in Hebrew. I don't know what they call it in American English.
Hemorrhoids.
Oh, that part of the body.
It's like swellings in that area. And that's very painful. And yet, nonetheless, the Arizal would be toivo in the mikveh, even though it was very uncomfortable for him to do so. And there was one time when his mother, the Arizal's mother, she made a gezerah on him of kibbutz, that if you go to the mikveh, you'll be mevatel the mitzvah of kibbutz. That's what she said to him. Yeah. And he was unable to go because he didn't want to be
What's kibbutz?
the whole mitzvah about it, yeah.
Honoring your parents?
In the end,
Oh,
she
kibbutz.
dropped the gezerah. Oh, but anyway, we see from that by adding to your tahara, you open up the gateways to being SHIUR, to more hashpur of the kedusha. So when the neshama has departed, according to the Sefer Chinuch, all the, as it were, the uniqueness of the clippers, as it were, grasp onto a Jewish body, and therefore he becomes a source of a spur of tumah. However, ask yourself the question, what about chapter 29 in Tanya? I'm making it challenging for you guys. What's written in chapter 29 in Tanya?
Oh, Tanya, yeah.
The Alter Rebbe writes over there that someone who's a tzaddik. No, you don't have any right to look it up now. Either you know or you don't. The Alter Rebbe writes about Hillel, a tzaddik, yeah, that he would go to eat, he would say he's feeding the poor man, you know. He said that he wasn't really shy to his goof, he sort of fed the goof like, yeah, like a poor man, like somebody you worry for, you know. And he said, and then the Alter Rebbe answered, I was his basar. It was connected to him. So he said it was a basar of an Adam, a basar Adam. In other words, that it was just like a continuation of the Nefesh Eloki. That's what the Alter Rebbe writes about the body of Hillel, a tzaddik. So, Lefi Zekum is a tzaddik, his body is just an expression of the neshama, and his body is completely SHIUR to Tachlis HaKedusha. What's with him? When he passes away, what happens? You understand? What happens with the body? So the differing opinions, the truth is. Yeah, it comes along the Sefer Chinuch, and you know what he writes? He says, Omer Razal, that tzaddikim einu metamim. It's written in the Sefer Chinuch that tzaddikim are not able to be metameh, because they have sanctified themselves so much, and they've brought so much kedusha that just bursts out through them, through the neshama, and the whole body becomes holy like the neshama. Just like the neshama is not affected, the neshama just goes to someplace else, and the body says, what are you going to do with me? And so for the time being, you just take it easy. And that's in effect what happens. And therefore, the Rebbe Rashav is a perfect example of the body of a tzaddik just waiting for further orders. And there's an amazing Gemara right near the end of Masechta Bava Basra where it's written that some guys were told to go into a field and dig up the field. So they go into the field and they're digging up the field, and then all of a sudden, are you okay? Are you listening?
Yeah, I'm just stretching.
Digging up the field, all of a sudden they hear a voice. And this voice says to them, "How dare you interfere with my manucha?" So they just completely and utterly go out of their kelim, and it appears that they understood that somebody must be buried there, you understand? And they said, "Excuse me, who are we talking with?" So he gives his name, and he says who he was. Yeah, and he was one of the Amoraim. He was one of the Amoraim, and he says, "So, you know, what are you guys interfering with me for? You know, don't do this." You know, so they got so, you know, absolutely scared and spooked that they ran back to one of the very high Amoraim. I think it was Rav Nachman, or, you know, something like that. They come back to him and they say, "You know what?" So he said, "Oh yes." So he said, "Let's go out." So he goes out with them, and he had a whole conversation with this grave. You understand? Yeah, he had a whole conversation with the grave, and he said, "Look, we're sorry that we've interfered with you." And he said, "Would you like to come to my house? And I can, you know, maybe offer you something." That's what Rav Nachman says to, and he says, "Oh," he said, "what can I do?" He said, "There's a gezeira from heaven that until Moshe will come and he will open all the graves, we don't have any right to leave. We gotta be here." And there's further stories which indicate even higher levels than that. I just can't go into all the stories, because otherwise we would just spend the whole shiur telling stories. You might say, well, no, who said that? So but anyway, it's amazing, you follow? And so he says that there's a pasuk in Yechezkel which says, "Ad sheyiftachu kibrei sechem," until Hashem will open up your graves, that's where you stay. Yeah. So he said, we have to listen to Yechezkel. We can't just walk out on our own. Oh, Wayne, thank you. He said, "Thank you for inviting me. And that's the only reason I'm not coming." Oh, hello, we see that there's something very spooky, you know, going on around here. So ask yourself the question, you know, maybe Turkey, the tzaddikim are not matame. Maybe they're not matame. And so comes along certain people, and they want to say, "Where does he know this, the Sefer?" And he said, "Omru Razal." So they say, "Where's it written?" A thing like that. You know? So they say, well, or take that Ma'aser Bava Basra, or take the Etzem story that we told about Eliyahu Hanavi burying Rabbi Akiva. So people said to him, "What are you doing? You're a kohen." And he said, "Oh, tzaddikim are not matame." So it comes along Tosfos, and Tosfos said, no, he was just saying that. He was just pushing them off. Oh, but maybe the Sefer Chinuch didn't learn like Tosfos. Maybe he learned that he meant it, but emes, you follow? And on that basis, the Sefer Chinuch learns that Einoch Hanami, tzaddikim are not matame. And l'choira, he's got a very powerful basis, because there's a Ma'aser that happened. I'm telling you Ma'asers today, so don't have any complaint. There's an amazing Ma'aser that when Rabbeinu HaKodesh, you know, Rabbeinu HaKodesh, when he was passing away, it's written that the Gemara writes, the Boisa Hayom Botla Kedusha. On that day, the Kedusha was bottled. So people don't quite figure, you know, what does that mean? So comes on over there, Tosfos, and brings a very interesting story. And he says, Tosfos, the bottle HaKedusha means that the Kohanim, on that day, they had the right to be mitame to Rabbeinu HaKodesh. And Botla Kedusha means Botla Kedusha of the Kahuna, of the Kohanim, only for that day. But for that day, for the sake of Rebbe, they were allowed to be metapel if they wanted. And who says this? Rabbeinu Chaim Kohen. One of the great Balei HaTos was that he's called Rabbeinu Chaim, but he's called Rabbeinu Chaim Kohen.
Yeah.
He was a Kohen. And you know what he writes over there? It's a Tosfos, and he writes that if I'm a Talmud of Rabbeinu Tam, because most of the Balei HaTos had some connection with Rabbeinu Tam. He was the big Balei HaTos. And he was, Rabbeinu Tam was the Einikel of Russia, you know that. So, but he was very holy, Rabbeinu Tam. So the Rabbeinu Chaim Kohen says that for some reason, I wasn't there at the funeral of Rabbeinu Tam. But he said, if I would have been, I would have been Metamet. That's what he writes. Rabbeinu Chaim Kohen writes that had I been at the funeral of Rabbi Yehuda, I'm sorry, Rabbeinu Tam, my Rebbe, Rabbeinu Tam, he said I would have been Metamet to him, or would have been Metafel him. Yeah. Because he said Tzaddik, he made him a Metamet. Yeah. Very amazing thing. The Rabbeinu Chaim Kohen writes that he would have done it. And he said, where did I get such a kohen to do? He said, it's written, the Gemara said about Rebbe, Botla HaKedusha, on that day. So he said, what's Rabbeinu Tam? And he listened. That's what he held about his Rebbe. He held that his Rebbe was just like, Rabbeinu HaKodesh. What if he said, kommt euch, there ain't noch an Hame, according to these opinions, the tzaddikim and the Harry Collins, the Rabbeinu Sefer Chinuch, he writes more for it. He says that's the halacha, and he brings it on the Razal. So either that, or nobody quite knows exactly what Razal is he referring to. So maybe he's referring to that story of Eliyahu Novi that buried Rebbe Akiva, you understand? And he said to the people that asked him, what are you doing? You're a Kohen? And he said, because Tzaddik, you made him Tamim. So Tosfos over in Baba Metzia, he says that Eliyahu Novi was just... how he could, pushing it away. Of Rabbeinu Chaim Kohen, he was also in the days. He didn't know that way. He held it as pastors. He held that, tzaddikim are not metamen.
Yeah.
Because and look, the Alter Rebbe writes Mufurish in Perek Kovtes. A tzaddik's body is absolutely holy. It's a continuation of the Nefesh Elokim. So l'choira, lefi it should be that in Lubavitch, the Kohanim weren't particularly makpid, and they could be metamet to the
Rebbe.
The Rebbe.
to the Rebbes. You follow? So is that the case?
Well, how do they get there?
No, it's not the case.
There's other people.
They have to walk through a graveyard to get
And when
there.
they buried the Alter Rebbe in
Right.
Hodid, we're talking about the Alter Rebbe. The Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, said that they should build a special area that the Kohanim would be able to only go up to there, or further not. You follow? And the same, by the oil in Brooklyn, there's a whole
Also
thing with the
Rashi.
Kohanim are only able to go up to a certain point. After that, not. Yeah. So I asked the question, if you write that l'choreh, you have to hold account of this. The Sefer Chinuch didn't hold that way. So why is it that Lubavitch, on the one hand, writes such an amazing thing, as the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Kovtes, and yet nonetheless, he apparently wouldn't want that the Kohanim should be metamet to him. So, what I want to suggest to you is like this. You follow, you get down to a slightly delicate situation. There's a lot of Poilishach said him, Einochanami, their Koyanim go to Meron. You know that? They go to Meron and other places where it's held to be Emerson Tzadikim, or they go. The Babich is not. The Babich Koyanim not. Of quite a lot of other people from Poilishers and others, they hold that the Sefer Chinuch and Rabbeinu Chaim Koyan, Balatizvas, they said that they, tzaddikim are not matama. And it makes good sense. So as long as they're surrounded in certain areas by people, they go to Rebbe Shimon, Koyanim. They go to Rebbe Shimon and Rebbe Loza and to other people from the great tzaddikim. So I asked the Shalom, what's with Lubavitch? Why is it Lubavitch not? So come along certain people, and they say, Einochanami. It's true. Oh, but we have to bear in mind that Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi, he was a Nossi. He wasn't just a great person. Yeah, he was a Nossi. He was the leader of all the Rabbonim. He was like in the Tzaddikim Gufa. He was like what you might call the chief Tzaddik. He was the leader of all the Tzaddikim. So for him, our sages said a very, very unusual thing, and they said B'Tela HaKidusha. Or but Tosfos over there says, only Midrabanan, only tumas, which are light ones, Midrabanan. Or a Tuma Midoraisa, like the Tuma of a mace. Oh, yeah. And so some people come along and say, why are we so machmir according to Tosfos? And over here in Bobham it said he doesn't want to accept that idea. So they say like this, that l'chayri, you get into a delicate situation that you're saying at different levels, he but maybe he not. So who's going to decide where's the dividing line between emetzer tzaddikim and maybe tzaddikim a little bit less, not so big tzaddikim. Yeah, how do we know, So therefore, we say that since there's a Isra Midoraisa, it's a mitzvah, mamish, loisa se Midoraisa, the Koyanim are not allowed to become Toma, and therefore we make a general etiquette, we make a general rule, and we just don't allow anybody, even though Ein Lachanami, a tzaddik is l'chayr, not matam. But we're not able, halacha, lamaisa. We don't want to get involved in all sorts of different sort of levels. Maybe maybe, who's going to decide who's really? Because it's a very big responsibility.
Right.
Yeah? It therefore, it's, I know of somebody that he once asked the Rebbe, he was a Kohen, and he asked the Rebbe if he should go to, if it was okay if he went to Meron. And the Rebbe said, you should ask Rabbani Anash in Eretz Yisrael what they say. The Rebbe didn't want to commit himself too openly, but on the other hand, he didn't allow it. He said, you have to ask the Rebbe Anash in Eretz Yisrael. And the Rebbe was pretty much aware of the fact that those Rabbanim would tell him not to go. Yeah. Of Abu Pikain, there are certain, I've heard Koyanim, Afila that have a shaylas with Lubavitch that have been known to be seen in Meron. But generally speaking, not. No. Okay, so that's a very interesting issue that I leave for further thought. The fact that this Rabbi Barbua, he met up with Eliyahu, and he's a Kohen, according to his opinion. Ask yourself another question. If we're going to say that he's a Kohen, and you're not allowed to be Metami Lamaisim, Stama Mais for sure not, then ask yourself another question altogether. And that is, that how come Eliyahu Hanavi was, he brought back to life the dead boy. You know the story. You know the story that Eliyahu, not Elisha, no, Eliyahu, he met up with this almana, that all she had was a little, how do you call it?
Jug of oil.
A jug of flour and a little bit of honey. That's all she had left for her and her son. And so he made a nezer, Eliyahu, that the Chadachimach made a whole series of food and kept them for a whole period of time. And just kept coming the whole time, refilling and a dvash also. So out of gratefulness for that,
Different story.
she looked after Eliyahu Novi Beneger to other things. So all of a sudden, she says to Eliyahu Novi, you know, she's got a problem that she has an only son, and that he's died, you know, and how can Hashem allow this to happen? Her son has passed away on her. So Eliyahu Novi says, let me in to see what's going on. So Eliyahu, it's written that Eliyahu Novi went in to the room where the boy was laying, and he laid out on the body of the boy, and he breathed into his nostrils, and the boy got up and he became alive again. You know the whole story. Yeah. Yeah, he became alive again. So people ask the question, and Tosfos amongst them, they say, how come Eliyahu Novi laid down on the body of the dead boy and brought him back to life? He's a kohen, and the dead boy, he's probably not a tzaddik. So you can't get out into that terrace. How come he laid on the body of the dead boy? He's not allowed to do that. So you know what Tosfos writes, a very amazing thing, yeah. So Tosfos says that we have to say that Eliyahu Novi knew that he could do it. He knew that it was in his power to bring him back to life. So he says, Im kain pikuach nefeshu. Oh. Tosfos says that to bring him back from life to life after he was already dead, oh, that's pikuach nefesh. If you know who you are. And Eliyahu Novi knew who he was. So he knew that he could bring him back to life. If you knew he can bring him back to life, that's pikuach nefesh. So there's a whole amazing discussion opens up amongst the great authorities. Wait a minute, man, what is pikuach nefesh? Pikuach nefesh is when people are alive to prevent them dying.
Right.
Or they go around bringing people back to life. You know, that's not pikuach. It's a whole new idea of pikuach nefesh. Because you've got to know for sure that you can do it. Then it's pikuach nefesh. If you don't know for sure, maybe it's a Soviet pikuach, I don't know. That's what Tosfos said. Comes along suddenly the other great Rishonim in the Shitta Mekubet says they don't want to be so courageous. And they say, you know something, the boy wasn't completely dead. He wasn't. He was in a very heavy coma. And his mother, she was mistaken. She thought he was dead. Eliyahu Novi, however, knew different, and he wasn't dead. So he laid on him, and he brought him back out of the coma. That's what they learned. Oh, but Tosfos doesn't learn that way. Tosfos learned he was dead. That's it's a whole new idea. What is it? Pikuach nefesh. And Tosfos says, since he knew he could do it, it was pikuach nefesh. Oh. Here we have a very interesting case of pikuach nefesh with dead people. Yeah, if you know who you are, never know. Anyway, Lafisa, it's becoming very, very interesting. You know, this whole amazing Indian with the Indian of bringing people back to life. and a Korean especially doing it. So I'm going to tell you guys another story now. This is a very adequate, like up-to-date story. There's a Rebbe who lives in America, and he's called the Monkitcher Rebbe, the Admor Mimonket. Now he is a descendant, direct descendant, from the very, very elevated, great Admor in Monket before the war, and he was called Minchas Baal Minchas Aloza. He was called the Admor Monket, the Monkitcher. And he was very close with the Rebbe's father. The Rebbe's father knew him well. And Beklal in Lubavitch, our Rebbe held from him, he was a very big authority in a lot of the Minchas Aloza, the Monkitcher. He's called the Monkitcher in Lubavitch. They call it the Monkitcher. And he had a big effect on the whole union of the Agudas Yisrael, the Friedrich Rebbe not going into the Agudas Yisrael. It's a whole big story, yeah. So anyway,
Wow.
this, what do you call him, present Rebbe, that he went over to the city of Monket to visit the gravesite of his father's, the Minchas Aloza. And also his grandfather was a big authority also in Rotterdam. He's buried there. So, they're discussing a certain person who wrote a book about a lot of Inyanim. He was talking with the monks, and he asked another question. He said, what was Rabbi Babur, the one we told the story, what was he doing in the base chorus of Goyim? What was he doing there? And he said, especially, what was Eliyahu Hanavi? What was he doing in the base chorus of Goyim? That's just by the way, you know. What's he doing there? What's Eliyahu Hanavi got to do to walk around in the base chorus of Goyim? And that's where they met up. Yeah? So you know what? There's a very famous sefer called the Rokeah. And the Sefer Rokeah was written by Rabbi Eliezer Germiza. He was one of the very big early Rishonim, and he was into Kabbalah of a very, very high, very, 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 very unusual and powerful stories about him. So he writes in reference to that, what was Eliyahu Hanavi doing? What was he doing inside the graveyard where Rabbi Bavur met up with him? What's he doing there? So you know what he writes, the Rokeah? He writes that Eliyahu Hanavi went into the, the graveyard of the Goyim, because there was a Goy there who once saved the lives of several Yidden. And he meant it l'shem Shema, he meant be'emes, to save the lives of these Yidden. And all of a sudden there was a threat that the Clippers wanted to get him somehow dragged into Gehenna, or to do him some damage after he was already dead, this guy. And Eliyahu Hanavi was, he heard everything that was going on, so he went to save this guy, that he shouldn't be affected by these Clippers, because he did a big favor for Yidden. That's what this present-day Rebbe told this guy, what the Rokeah writes that Eliyahu Hanavi was doing. So he said, you see from that if certain Yidden, Goyim, do big favors for Yidden, and they mean it, they mean l'shem Shamayim, as much as they're able to, then you have to be makir tov, and you have to pay them back, toiv. You can only be goyim or toiv to them. And therefore Eliyahu Hanavi, based on the fact that you must always pay back